Stop. Look at your hands. Now imagine a king, a real historical king, who looked at hands like yours and saw a line item on a balance sheet. A king so obsessed with profit that he turned human hands into a form of corporate currency. No, this isn't a fantasy horror movie. This was a real startup, and it was called the Congo Free State. I'm your midnight meme historian, and tonight we're taking a deep dive into the business plan of history's most psychopathic CEO, King Leopold II of Belgium. By the end of this video, you will understand how one man privatized a country 75 times bigger than his own, how he convinced the world his slave labor death camp was a charity, and why the first tech boom of the modern age was powered by unimaginable brutality. This isn't a story about colonialism. It's a story about a hostile takeover. So, how did a failed real estate developer with a crown pull off the biggest and bloodiest scam in history? Let's open the books. Alright? Picture this. It's the late 1800s. Europe is having what I like to call its midlife crisis with maps. Everyone's scrambling to claim a piece of Africa, a continent most of them couldn't find without a GPS and a search party. And in the middle of all this is King Leopold II. This guy was the quintessential rich kid with daddy issues. He was king of Belgium, a tiny, boring country famous for waffles and rain. Leopold wanted more. He looked at the world's great powers with their vast empires and felt a crippling case of colonial envy. He tried to buy provinces in Argentina. He tried to lease islands from the Philippines. The dude was basically a 19th century crypto bro trying to get in on the next big thing, and he was failing miserably. But then, he saw the Congo, a massive, unexplored territory right in the heart of Africa. And he had a brilliant, evil idea. He didn't try to conquer it for Belgium. No, that would involve pesky things like parliament and accountability. Instead, he decided to acquire it for himself. As a private citizen, this would be his personal company, his side hustle. It would be like if Elon Musk didn't just buy Twitter, but bought all of Canada as his personal property. But how do you sell that to the world? You don't. You lie. Leopold launched the most audacious PR campaign in history. He hosted a big geographical conference in Brussels, invited a bunch of explorers and philanthropists, and announced he was creating a charity. A non-profit. Its goal to bring civilization, Christianity, and commerce to the poor natives of the Congo. And, get this, to end the Arab slave trade in the region. He called his new venture the International African Association. It sounds so boring and bureaucratic. It has to be legit. Right, the world bought it. The United States was one of the first to recognize his claim. Everyone thought, wow, what a great guy, this Leopold. Using his personal fortune to help Africa. It was the historical equivalent of a billionaire announcing Hayes starting a foundation to save the puppies, while secretly building a giant puppy skinning factory in the basement. With the world's blessing, Leopold took control. The Congo Free State was born. The only two words in that title that were true were Congo and state. The free part, that was some next-level ironic branding. So, what was the business model of this charity at first? It was ivory. But that was slow. Then, a Scottish veterinarian named John Boyd Dunlop invented the inflatable rubber tire. Suddenly, the world went insane for rubber. Bicycles, cars, industrial hoses. Rubber was the new oil. And guess where the world's largest supply of wild rubber was? Leopold's backyard. This is where the startup goes from a scam to a horror show. Leopold declared that all the land and everything on it belonged to him. The natives who had lived there for centuries, they were now squatters on his property, and they were going to pay rent with their labor. He created a private army called the Force Public. These weren't soldiers. They were a collection of mercenaries, psychopaths, and even some actual cannibals, armed with modern weapons. Their job was to enforce corporate policy. They were the most brutal middle management in history. Every village was given an impossible quota of rubber to collect. If you missed your quota, the Force Public would come to motivate you. And their methods were efficient. To save bullets, soldiers were required to prove they hadn't wasted ammunition on hunting. The proof they had to bring back the severed right hand of every person they shot. If they shot a man but missed, or used a bullet to hunt an animal. They just cut off the hand of a living person to make their accounting balance. Let me repeat that. Human hands became a form of inventory control, a proof of purchase for ammunition. Villages that resisted had their women and children taken hostage until the men produced enough rubber. People were worked to death, starved to death, or murdered for failing to meet their key performance indicators. This wasn't a country. It was a giant, open-air Amazon fulfillment center where the penalty for missing your target was dismemberment. And where was King Leopold during all of this? Was he in the trenches, leading his civilizing mission? Of course not. The guy never once set foot in the Congo. Not a single time. He was back in Belgium, getting obscenely rich. He used the profits to build massive palaces, buy yachts, and shower his teenage mistresses with gifts. He was a remote work tyrant, a genocidal digital nomad. This went on for years. The death toll is estimated to be somewhere between 5 and 15 million people. Half the population of the Congo wiped out. So one dude in Europe could have a bigger palace than his cousin. So how did this nightmare finally end? It ended because of a handful of people who did what we'd now call speaking truth to power. A black American journalist named George Washington Williams went to the Congo and was so horrified he wrote an open letter to Leopold, exposing the whole thing. A British shipping clerk named E.D. Morel noticed that ships leaving Belgium for the Congo were full of guns and ammunition, but ships coming back were only full of rubber and ivory. The math didn't add up. He realized it wasn't trade, it was robbery. He became the world's first great whistleblower, launching a massive public campaign. The pressure mounted. Mark Twain wrote a scathing satire about Leopold. Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, wrote a book about it. It became the first major international human rights movement of the 20th century. Eventually, the outcry was so huge that Leopold was forced to sell his private company to the Belgian government. He got a massive payout, and the Congo Free State was rebranded as the Belgian Congo. The management changed, but the exploitation continued for another 50 years. Leopold died in 1909, one of the richest men in the world, without ever being charged with a single crime. He is the ultimate proof that history is not written by the victors. It's written by the people with the best public relations team. He took a genocide, wrapped it in a humanitarian flag, and sold it to the world as progress. So the next time a billionaire tells you they're going to save the world with their new foundation or their revolutionary tech, remember King Leopold II. Remember that the road to hell is paved with philanthropic press releases. And remember that the most dangerous monsters in history don't have horns and pitchforks. They have expensive suits, a team of lawyers, and a really, really good story. If this descent into corporate-sponsored hell made you lose what little faith you had left in humanity, smash that like button into oblivion. Tap the bell because you don't want to miss our next episode where we roast the absolute clown show that was the Spanish Inquisition. And I need you to settle a debate in the comments who is worse, a historical monster like Leopold, or the modern CEOs who use similar, but more subtle, methods of exploitation today. Let the games begin. This channel runs on pure, unfiltered rage and coffee. If you want to fuel the next roast, the link to my KO-fi is in the description. And if you want to wear your disgust for history's greatest villains, check out the Savage merch store. We have designs that are guaranteed to start an argument at your next family dinner.